There is a fundamental truth that governs the entire human experience, a truth so simple that it is often overlooked in our search for complex secrets to success. It is this: your life as it exists today is nothing more and nothing less than the sum total of your choices. The person you are, the work you do, the health you enjoy, the wealth you possess, all of it is a direct reflection of the choices you have made day after day, year after year. Change, therefore, does not happen by chance. It happens by choice. The power to alter the course of your life does not reside in your circumstances, in your environment, or in your past. It resides and has always resided within the quiet, powerful sanctuary of your own will. The choice to be better, to do better, to have more, is a choice that is available to you in every single moment. For the next hour, we will embark on a journey to explore the architecture of those choices. We will not be discussing fleeting motivational tips. We will be discussing the 10 fundamental, unchanging laws of a well-lived life. These are not my laws. They are the principles that have governed human success and fulfillment for centuries. They are simple, they are practical, and when applied with consistency, their power to transform your life is absolute. So, I invite you now to set aside the distractions, to open your mind, and to engage with these ideas. For the wisdom we are about to explore will challenge you to become the conscious architect of your own future, beginning with the very next choice you make. We have now established the grand and foundational premise of our entire philosophy, that your life in its every detail is the sum total of your choices. Change, therefore, is not a matter of chance, but a matter of conscious, deliberate choice. This brings us to the first, most practical, and often most emotionally charged arena where these choices are tested day in and day out. Before we can speak of mastering our time, our relationships, or our purpose, we must first bring order to the most tangible resource that flows through our hands. We must begin with the subject of money. But this will not be a typical conversation about budgets and balance sheets. We are here to discuss the philosophy, the character, and the mindset behind wealth. For your relationship with money is one of the most profound and revealing mirrors of your own inner world. This is the first and foundational law of a well-lived life, the law of stewardship, mastering the tool of money. Let us begin by dismantling the great myths that surround money. Money is not the root of all evil, nor is it the source of all happiness. Money is, in its essence, neutral. It is a tool. It is a form of stored energy, a convenient medium for exchanging the value that human beings create. Like any powerful tool, be it a fire that can warm a home or burn it to the ground, or a hammer that can build a cradle or be used as a weapon, its effect is determined entirely by the character and the skill of the person who wields it. Money is an amplifier. It will only make you more of what you already are. If you are a generous person, money will make you more generous. If you are a fearful and stingy person, more money will only amplify your fear. If you are a disciplined person, money will become a powerful servant in your hands. If you are an undisciplined person, you will become its slave. Therefore, the first principle of mastering money is to understand that the primary work is not on your wallet, but on yourself. You must cease to be a mere earner and spender, caught in the endless cycle of survival. You must elevate your perspective to that of a wise and responsible steward. A steward is someone who is entrusted with the management of valuable resources, not for their own immediate gratification, but for the long-term growth and prosperity of the entire estate. Your life is that estate. The life of mere survival is the life of the undisciplined. All the energy that comes in the form of a paycheck is immediately expended to cover the costs of the present moment. It is a life lived on a treadmill, a life of constant effort with no forward progress. The goal of our philosophy is not survival. The goal is to thrive. And the journey from surviving to thriving begins with the first duty of the steward. The first duty is the discipline of the tenth. This is the non-negotiable law of paying yourself first. Before you pay any bill, before you buy any groceries, before you spend a single dollar on the pleasures of the present, You must first set aside a portion of all that you earn for the owner of the estate, which is your future self. Let us establish a clear and unwavering standard, a minimum of 10%, not 5, not 8, 10% off the top. This single habit, when practiced with relentless consistency, is the most powerful act of financial transformation you can ever undertake. Why? Because this act is not primarily about the amount of money. It is about the character it forges. Every time you set aside that 10%, you are performing a profound psychological act. You are making a declaration to yourself that your future is more important than your impulses. You are choosing long-term freedom over short-term gratification. You are training the muscle of self-control, which is the master muscle of all success. The most common excuse is, I cannot afford to save 10%. The truth is, you cannot afford not to. To say you cannot afford to save is to admit that your current plan is not working. It is a declaration of financial failure. You must break that plan. If you cannot start with 10%, then start with 5. If you cannot start with 5, then start with 1%. The amount is secondary. The habit, the discipline of setting something aside from every paycheck is primary. You must begin the process. This first duty, the discipline of saving, is the act of gathering your seeds. It provides a foundation of security. It gives you a safety net. But a farmer who only ever gathers seeds and stores them in a barn will eventually starve. The seeds must be planted. This brings us to the second duty of the steward. The second duty is the faith of the investor. To invest is to take the seeds you have so diligently saved and to plant them in fertile soil where they can grow and multiply and one day produce a harvest far greater than the sum of the original seeds. Investing is an act of faith. It is a tangible and powerful expression of your belief in the future. It is a statement that you believe in the marketplace, in human ingenuity, and in your own ability to make wise decisions. While saving is an act of discipline, investing is an act of courage and foresight. Where do you plant these seeds? The first and most important field you must ever invest in is yourself. You must invest in your own skills, your own knowledge, your own health. You can lose a stock market investment, you can lose a piece of real estate, but the investment you make in becoming a more capable, more intelligent, and more valuable human being is an asset that no one can ever take from you. It is the investment with the highest and most reliable return. Beyond yourself, you invest in assets, businesses, stocks, real estate, things that have the potential to grow in value or produce an income. This is not gambling. Gambling is the act of risking your resources on a game of chance. Investing is the act of committing your resources to a well-researched strategic plan for growth. It requires you to become a student, to learn the principles of how money grows, to understand risk, and to practice the great virtue of patience. You cannot make a tree grow faster by pulling on its branches. You plant the seed, you water it, you protect it, and you trust the process of compounding growth over time. Saving is security. Investing is freedom. This is the path from having enough to having more than enough. This leads us to the third and highest duty of the steward. Once you have built a system of disciplined saving and wise investing, and your own estate is thriving, you must practice the grace of generosity. The act of charity, of giving a portion of your resources away with no expectation of return, is a vital and often overlooked component of a truly wealthy life. Why? Because the act of giving is the most powerful antidote to the poison of a scarcity mindset. The fear of not having enough is what keeps most people in a state of financial anxiety, regardless of their income. It leads to hoarding, to stinginess, and to a life of fear. The act of giving is a profound declaration to yourself and to the universe that you live in a world of abundance. It is a statement that your well is so full that you have more than enough to share with others. This act breaks the psychological grip of scarcity. Furthermore, money is like energy. It must flow, it must circulate. A pond that has an inlet but no outlet will eventually become stagnant and lifeless. Your financial life is the same. You must have resources flowing in through your earning and investing, and you must also have resources flowing out through your wise spending and your generous giving. This circulation keeps your financial life vibrant and healthy. The returns on generosity cannot be measured on a financial statement, but they are very real. They return to you in the form of goodwill of a strong reputation, of unexpected opportunities, and of a deep sense of fulfillment that mere accumulation can never provide. This, then, is the trinity of financial stewardship. First, you practice the discipline of saving to build your character and your security. Second, you practice the faith of investing to build your future and your freedom. And third, you practice the grace of giving to build your soul and your connection to the world. To do this effectively, you must also master the simple habit of tracking. You must know where your resources are going. An unexamined financial life is a life out of control. The wise steward keeps meticulous records. They track their income, their spending, their investments. This is not an act of restriction. It is an act of awareness. It is this awareness that allows you to identify leaks in your financial ship, to optimize your performance, and to make intelligent, data-driven decisions. And finally, you must be ruthless in the elimination of unnecessary debt. High-interest debt is a cancer on your financial health. It is the anti-investment. It is a force that works relentlessly against you, compounding day and night. The steward makes it their absolute priority to eradicate this disease from their estate so that their resources can be used for building, not for servicing the mistakes of the past. Your relationship with money is a lifelong practice. It is a direct reflection of the laws you choose to live by. You can choose the law of mediocrity, of earning and spending, of living in a state of perpetual survival. Or you can choose the law of stewardship. You can choose to be the wise, disciplined, and forward-thinking ruler of your own financial estate. You can choose to build a life not just of wealth, but of character, of freedom, and of profound and lasting abundance. The choice, as always, is yours. We have now established the first law of a well-lived life, the law of stewardship. We have learned to see money not as a master to be served, but as a powerful tool to be wielded with discipline, foresight, and grace. We have brought order to our financial house, transforming it from a source of anxiety into a foundation of security and a platform for freedom. But this financial order, as essential as it is merely the preparation for a far more profound and challenging discipline. For what is the purpose of financial freedom if you do not have the time to enjoy it, to use it, to translate it into a life of meaning? You can always, through skill and discipline, earn more money. But you can never, under any circumstance, earn more time. This brings us to our second and perhaps most critical law. It is the discipline of mastering the one asset that is truly finite, absolutely irreplaceable, and perfectly democratic in its distribution. Every person on this planet, rich or poor, powerful or humble, is granted the exact same 24 hours each day. The difference in the quality of human lives is therefore not a difference in the quantity of time received, but in the quality of the stewardship of that time. This is the second law, the art of the delivered day. Mastering the canvas of time. I want you to consider your life as a great art gallery. At the end of your days, the halls will be filled with the canvases of your life, one for each day you have lived. The question that this discipline forces us to ask is this: when you look back at that gallery, will you see a chaotic collection of random, hurried sketches, splattered with the muddy colors of distraction and regret? Or will you see a breathtaking collection of masterpieces, each one a deliberate, intentional, and focused work of art? The majority of people live what I call the accidental day. Their day is not a canvas upon which they paint. It is a stage upon which they react. They wake up and immediately the world begins to write the script for them. The email inbox screams for their attention. The notifications on their phone pull them in a dozen different directions. The urgent but often unimportant demands of others become the director of their day. They are a pinball bounced from one reactive task to another, and at the end of the day they collapse in exhaustion, feeling busy but not productive. They have filled the canvas, yes, but they did not choose the subject. The practitioner of this second law chooses to live a different kind of life. They choose to live the deliberate day. They see each new morning not as a list of obligations, but as a fresh, blank, and priceless canvas. And they see themselves as the master artist who will, with intention and focus, create a work of value upon it. The art of the deliberate day is not about time management in the sense of cramming more and more activity into your hours. It is not about becoming a more efficient robot. It is about becoming a more intentional artist. And the work of the artist can be broken down into a clear, methodical process. The first act of the artist is to decide what to paint. An artist would never walk up to a blank canvas and just randomly start throwing paint at it. They begin with a vision, an intention, a subject. Before you can master your day, you must first have absolute clarity on what matters most in the grand scheme of your life. As we have discussed, you must have clearly defined goals. What is the great work of your career? What does vibrant health look like for you? What is the quality of relationship you are committed to building? These priorities are your subject matter. If you do not know what you are trying to paint, you will inevitably spend your day painting the subjects that other people hand to you. The first hour of your day is the most critical. It is when the artist prepares the canvas. The accidental person rolls out of bed and immediately floods their mind with the chaotic inputs of the world, the news, social media, other people's emergencies. They are, in effect, throwing mud on their fresh canvas before they have even decided what to paint. The deliberate artist protects this first hour with a fierce jealousy. This is their sacred time. They use it to prepare their canvas. They hydrate their body. They move to create energy. And most importantly, they spend time in quiet reflection, reviewing their vision, and deciding on the one or two most important subjects they will render on the canvas of that day. Once the subject is chosen, the artist begins the work of applying the brushstrokes. Your actions throughout the day are the brushstrokes that create the painting. The master artist understands that not all brushstrokes are created equal. There are the broad, bold, foundational strokes that define the entire composition. This is your deep work. This is the 1 or 2 hours of focused, uninterrupted concentration on your single most important task. It is the work that requires all of your cognitive ability. The deliberate artist identifies their period of highest energy in the day, and they dedicate that time without compromise to these foundational brushstrokes. They build a fortress around this time. The phone is off, the door is closed, the notifications are silenced. Then there are the smaller, finer brushstrokes. These are the emails, the phone calls, the meetings, the administrative tasks. They are necessary, but they are not the heart of the masterpiece. The deliberate artist groups these smaller tasks together, executing them in focused batches rather than allowing them to constantly interrupt the deeper, more important work. The artist must also be a master of their tools. And the most dangerous enemy of the artist is the myth of multitasking. Multitasking is not, as many believe, the act of doing 2 things at once. It is the act of switching rapidly and inefficiently between 2 things while doing both of them poorly. It is like trying to paint a masterpiece with 2 brushes in one hand, dipping them in different colors at the same time. The result is not a beautiful painting. It is a brown, muddy mess. The master focuses on one brushstroke at a time, giving it their full and complete attention. To protect the integrity of this work, the artist must confront the great thieves of time. The first and most relentless thief is procrastination. Procrastination is the fear of spoiling the blank canvas. It is the artist staring at the canvas, so afraid of making a mistake that they never make the first mark. The antidote to this fear is the principle of the smallest viable action. You do not set out to paint the entire masterpiece. You simply commit to making the first small, imperfect mark. You write the first sentence. You make the first call. You do the first sketch. This first act breaks the spell of inertia and creates momentum. The second thief is distraction. As we have discussed, distraction is the art of the outside world trying to paint on your canvas for you. To defend against this, the artist must master the most powerful word in the vocabulary of productivity, the word no. You must understand that every time you say yes to a low priority request, you are implicitly saying no to your own high priority work. Saying no is not an act of selfishness. It is an act of profound integrity. It is a declaration that you value the masterpiece you are creating more than you value the temporary approval of others. You must learn to say no gracefully, but firmly to the invitations, the requests, and the demands that do not align with the subject you have chosen to paint today. Finally, the art of the deliberate day is not just about the painting, it is about the artist. A painter who works for 18 hours straight without rest will find that their hand becomes unsteady, their eyes become blurry, and their work becomes sloppy. The deliberate artist understands the rhythm of creation. They know that periods of intense, focused work must be balanced with periods of deliberate, strategic rest. This is not laziness, this is rejuvenation. It is the time when you step back from the canvas, allow your perspective to reset, and your creative energy to replenish. A walk in nature, a conversation with a loved one, a period of quiet meditation, these are not time wasted, they are an essential part of the creative process. A life of relentless work with no rest is a life destined for burnout. The masterpiece is not created in a single frantic sprint. It is created in a sustainable, lifelong marathon. This, then, is the art of the deliberate day. It is a profound shift in your relationship with time. You stop seeing time as a predator that is hunting you, and you start seeing it as a canvas that is waiting for you. You begin each day with intention, preparing your canvas. You choose your subject with clarity, defining your priorities. You apply your brushstrokes with focus, dedicating your best energy to your most important work. You protect your studio from the thieves of procrastination and distraction. And you honor the rhythm of your own creative energy by balancing intense work with deliberate rest. Your life is a gallery. Each day is a new canvas. The world will hand you a bucket of muddy water and a tangled brush if you let it. But the sovereign, the artist, the rescuer of their own life politely declines. They walk into their studio, close the door, and with the clear colors of their own intention, they begin the sacred and glorious work of painting their own masterpiece. We have now established the first two foundational laws of a life of substance. We have become the wise steward of our financial resources, understanding money not as a master, but as a tool for the construction of a magnificent life. Following that, we have become the master artist of our time, seeing each day as a fresh canvas upon which we paint with the deliberate strokes of purpose and intention. We have brought order to our resources and our hours. This leads us to the next and perhaps most profound economic question of our lives. Now that we are managing our time with such deliberate focus, how do we translate that time, that focused effort, into the resources required to build the life we envision? This question forces us to confront a deep-seated philosophical choice about our own economic identity. It is a choice that will determine whether we live a life of financial security and limitation or a life of financial freedom and boundless possibility. This is not just a financial strategy, it is a philosophy of life. This is our third law, the philosophy of the harvest, mastering profits over wages. In the world of work and economics, there are two fundamental ways a person can earn a living. The first is by earning a wage. The second is by creating a profit. And while they may seem similar, the philosophical difference between them is the difference between a life of comfortable servitude and a life of challenging sovereignty. Let us first speak of the wage. There is a great dignity and importance in earning a wage. A wage is an honorable exchange. You trade a measured unit of your life, an hour of your time, a day of your effort for a predictable and stable amount of money. The wage is the foundation of economic stability for the vast majority of people on this planet. It allows you to pay your bills, to provide for your family, and to sleep with a sense of security. We must never disparage the importance of this foundation. However, a life lived solely on the wage is, by its very definition, a life of limitation. It is a golden cage. The cage is comfortable, it is secure, it is predictable, but it is still a cage. Why? Because a wage is inextricably tied to your most finite resource, your time. There are only 24 hours in a day. There are only so many years in a working life. When you trade your time for money, you have placed a hard, immovable ceiling on your own potential. You can become more efficient, you can become more valuable per hour, but you can never, ever create more hours. A wage, therefore, will help you make a living. but it will rarely, if ever, help you make a fortune. This brings us to the second path, the path of the Creator, the Sovereign, the rescuer of their own life. This is the path of profit. What is a profit? A profit is not what you are paid for your time. A profit is the reward you receive for the value you create, for the problems you solve, and for the calculated risks you take. A profit is the harvest you reap from a field you have planted and nurtured yourself. To understand this difference, you must embrace a new metaphor for your economic life. You must stop thinking like a hired hand and start thinking like a farmer. The hired hand lives the life of the wage. They are a good, honest, and valuable person. They show up at the farm every day, and they are paid for their hours of labor. They plant the seeds, they water the crops, they tend the fields, but the field belongs to someone else. At the end of the season, the hired hand receives their predictable wage, but the owner of the farm gets to keep the entire massive harvest. The hired hand is secure. The farmer has the potential to become wealthy. The philosophy of the harvest is the conscious decision to stop being merely a hired hand in the fields of life and to start becoming a farmer. It is the decision to begin planting your own seeds in your own small field so that you may one day reap your own harvest. This is the mindset of the entrepreneur, the investor, the creator, the problem solver. It is a fundamental shift in your identity. It is a declaration of economic independence. So, how does one become a farmer? What does this philosophy look like in practice? It begins with a shift in your primary question. The hired hand asks, how can I become more valuable to my boss so I can earn a higher wage? This is a good question, but it is a limited one. The farmer asks a different, more powerful set of questions. What does the world need? What problems are people struggling with? What value can I create and bring to the marketplace that people would be willing to pay for? The farmer's focus is not on their time. Their focus is on the needs of the market and the quality of their harvest. This brings us to the three primary fields where you can begin to cultivate your own profits. The first and most direct is the field of entrepreneurship. To be an entrepreneur is simply to be a problem solver. This does not mean you must invent the next revolutionary technology or build a massive corporation. Entrepreneurship can begin on the smallest of scales. It is the act of taking a skill you have, a passion you possess, or a piece of knowledge you've acquired, and turning it into a service or a product that helps other people. Perhaps you are an excellent writer, a skilled accountant, a talented artist. In your wage-based life, you use that skill for your employer. In your profit-based life, you begin to offer that same skill to the marketplace in your own small way on the side. You are no longer just trading your time. You are creating a system for delivering value, and you are being rewarded with a profit for the value you create. The second is the field of investing. If entrepreneurship is farming your own land, investing is the act of becoming a silent partner in other great farmers' fields. You take the seeds of your savings, the capital you have diligently set aside, and you plant them in businesses and assets that you believe will produce a great harvest. When you buy a share of a great company, you are becoming a fractional owner of that enterprise. When they succeed, when they generate a profit, you, as an owner, get to share in that success. Your money is now working for you. It is a silent, diligent, hired hand, laboring in the fields of the marketplace day and night, producing a harvest for you even while you sleep. A life of wages requires your presence. A life of investment allows your wealth to grow independent of your presence. The third, and perhaps most powerful in the modern age, is the field of intellectual property. This is the act of planting a seed that, once nurtured, can be harvested an infinite number of times. When you write a book, when you create a course, when you invent a product, when you compose a piece of music, you are creating an asset. You do the hard work of creation once, but that asset can be sold over and over again, generating a profit for you for years or even decades. This is the farmer who has learned how to create a self-harvesting crop. It is one of the most powerful forms of leverage in the modern economy. This is the philosophy. But we must also speak of the price. The harvest is not free. The path of the farmer is far more challenging in the short term. than the path of the hired hand. The hired hand enjoys the security of a predictable paycheck. The farmer must endure the uncertainty of the seasons. They must be willing to plant their seeds, to labor in the field for months with no guarantee of a harvest. The path of profit requires a profound degree of delayed gratification. It requires you to do the work today for a reward that may not come for months or even years. The hired hand's risk is low. The farmer's risk is high. A storm could wipe out their entire crop. A new competitor could enter the market. The farmer must become a student of risk. They must learn to take calculated, intelligent risks, not foolish gambles. And the hired hand's work ends when the clock strikes 5. The farmer's work is never done. They are always thinking about their field, about the weather, about the quality of their soil. The path of profit demands a level of ownership and obsession that the path of wages does not. So why would anyone choose this harder path? They choose it for one reason: freedom. A life of wages, for all its security, is a life of limited freedom. Your time is not your own. Your income potential has a ceiling. Your destiny is largely in the hands of your employer. A life of profits is the path to ultimate sovereignty. The potential for your income is uncapped. Your time, once your assets are producing for you, becomes your own again. And your destiny is in your own hands. This freedom, the freedom to choose how you spend the precious, finite canvas of your days, is the ultimate prize. It is the harvest that is worth any price. So, you must begin. You do not have to abandon the security of your wage tomorrow. But you must, if you desire freedom, begin to plant your own small field today. Start the side business. Read the book on investing. Start writing the first page of your own book. Begin the shift, not just in your actions, but in your identity. Stop seeing yourself merely as an employee. Start seeing yourself as a farmer, an owner, an investor, a creator. It is this shift in philosophy that will, over time, transform your financial life from one of surviving to one of thriving. We have now established the first 3 laws in our architecture of a well-lived life. We have become the wise steward of our money, the master artist of our time, and the intelligent farmer in our economic philosophy, committed to cultivating the harvest of profits over the security of wages. We have learned to plant our own seeds in our own fields. This leads us to the ultimate purpose of this challenging and rewarding work. Why do we go through the effort of building businesses, of investing, of creating value? What is the ultimate harvest we are seeking? The goal is not merely to accumulate more resources than our neighbor. The goal is not a bigger house or a faster car for the sake of impressing a world that is not paying attention. The true purpose of mastering the laws of economics is to purchase the single most valuable and precious commodity in the universe, your own life. This is the pursuit that elevates financial strategy into a spiritual quest. It is the journey from being a servant of money to becoming the master of your own destiny. This is our 4th law, the pursuit of sovereignty, mastering financial independence. Let us begin by dismantling the common definition of this term. Financial independence is not about being rich in the way society often portrays it. It is not about a life of idle, hedonistic luxury. It is not about never working another day in your life. It is something far more profound and powerful. Financial independence is the state of being where you no longer need to trade your time for money in order to live. It is the point at which the income generated by your assets, your investments, your businesses, your creations, is sufficient to cover your expenses. It is not the end of work. It is the beginning of true work. It is the freedom to choose your work based on your purpose, your passion, and your desire for contribution, not on the desperate need to pay your bills. It is the freedom to say no to the project that does not align with your values. It is the freedom to say yes to the opportunity that nourishes your soul, even if it does not immediately enrich your wallet. It is the freedom to control your own calendar, to spend your precious, finite time with the people you love, on the projects that matter, in the places that inspire you. This is not just financial freedom. This is time freedom. And since your time is your life, it is ultimately life freedom. It is the practical, real-world application of the principle of sovereignty we have spoken of. You are no longer a subject in the kingdom of an employer. You are the ruler of your own. So, how is this state of sovereignty achieved? The journey is not a mystery. It is a simple, logical, and achievable process. The entire path to financial independence can be distilled into a single, elegant equation. And that equation is this: your passive income must be greater than your expenses. That is it. That is the entire game. And in this game, there are only two levers you can pull. You can work on the expense side of the equation, or you can work on the passive income side of the equation. The person who achieves sovereignty is the one who becomes a master of pulling both levers simultaneously. Let us first discuss mastering the defense. This is the art of managing your expenses, the art of intentional living. The greatest enemy of financial independence is a force known as lifestyle inflation. This is the natural, almost universal human tendency to increase your spending as your income increases. You get a raise, so you buy a bigger house. You get a bonus, so you buy a more expensive car. Your income may be growing, but the gap between what you earn and what you spend remains perilously thin. This is the golden treadmill. It is a race that you can never win, because every time you speed up, the finish line moves further away. You may be living in a state of high income comfort, but you are no closer to freedom. The antidote to lifestyle inflation is the philosophy of enough. The master of this discipline consciously decides what is truly enough for a life of happiness and fulfillment. They refuse to participate in the mindless consumer culture that is designed to keep you perpetually dissatisfied. They understand that the most valuable things in life, strong relationships, good health, peace of mind, have very little to do with the brand of car they drive. They focus on creating and protecting the single most important number in their financial life, the gap. The gap between what you earn and what you spend. This gap is the seed capital of your freedom. Your entire financial strategy should revolve around one goal: making that gap as wide as possible, as consistently as possible. This requires the discipline of budgeting, not as an act of restriction, but as an act of intention. A budget is simply a spending plan that reflects your values. It is you, the sovereign, telling your money where to go, instead of wondering where it went. And it requires the ruthless elimination of high-interest debt, which is the anti-investment, a fire that is actively burning down your financial house. This is the defensive game. It is the art of building a strong financial fortress. It is not the most exciting part of the journey, but it is the most essential. Without a strong defense, any offense you mount will be useless. Now, let us speak of mastering the offense. This is the exciting part of the journey. This is the art of building your income machine. Every dollar you save in your gap is not just a dollar. It is a soldier. It is a worker that you can deploy into the marketplace to labor for you day and night for the rest of your life. The goal is to build an army of these dollar soldiers so vast and so effective that their daily labor is enough to pay for your entire lifestyle. At that point, your own personal labor becomes optional. How do you build this army? You do so by buying or creating assets. An asset is anything that puts money into your pocket without requiring your direct labor. You must become obsessed with the acquisition of assets. As we discussed in our last chapter, there are three great machines for generating this passive income. The first is the business machine, where you build systems that solve problems and create value for others, systems that can operate without your constant hands-on presence. The second is the investment machine, where you become a part owner in the great businesses of the world through stocks, real estate, or other vehicles, and you share in their profits and their growth. This is where you harness the most powerful force in the financial universe, the power of compounding. Compounding is the eighth wonder of the world. It is the process of your dollar soldiers not only working for you, but also producing new soldiers of their own, which then also start working for you. A small, disciplined, and consistent investment over a long period of time can grow into an absolute fortune as this army multiplies exponentially. The third is the intellectual property machine, where you create a valuable asset, once a book, a course, a piece of music, an invention that can then generate income for you repeatedly for years to come. This is the offensive game. It is the act of building, of creating, of investing. It is the path of the farmer who is not just saving their seeds, but planting them. So, how do you know when you have arrived? You must define your freedom number. This is the amount of invested assets you need to have in order to be financially independent. A simple rule of thumb is to calculate your ideal annual expenses and then multiply that number by 25. This is the amount of capital that, when wisely invested, should be able to support you indefinitely. This number transforms a vague, distant dream into a clear, concrete, and achievable mathematical target. It becomes the destination on your map. You may be far from it now, but you know exactly where you are going. You must understand that this journey is the true reward. The person you must become in order to achieve financial independence is the greatest prize of all. You must become disciplined. You must become patient. You must become a lifelong learner. You must become a person who can delay gratification. You must become a person of foresight and strategy. You must, in essence, become the master steward, the master artist, and the wise farmer. The financial freedom you achieve is simply the byproduct of the magnificent character you have forged along the way. This is the pursuit of sovereignty. It is not an easy path. It is a path of discipline, of sacrifice, and of profound patience. It is a choice to reject the cultural script of consumerism and debt and to write your own script of ownership and freedom. It is the ultimate act of taking control. It is the decision that you will no longer be a pawn on the great chessboard of life, but you will be the player. You will be the one who chooses your move. You will be the one who determines the outcome of your own game. This is the freedom that is waiting for you. Ooh. We have now traveled through the first 4 great laws of a self-determined life. We have learned to be the wise steward of our money, the master artist of our time, the intelligent farmer of our own harvest, and the relentless pursuer of our own sovereignty through financial independence. We have set a grand and worthy destination. The pursuit of sovereignty is one of the most challenging and rewarding journeys a person can undertake. And when faced with such a monumental goal, it is natural to believe that the path to achieving it must be equally monumental, that it must be paved with complex strategies, secret knowledge, and sophisticated hidden techniques. We begin our search for the hack, for the shortcut, for the one secret piece of information that will unlock the doors to the life we desire. But this search, this obsession with complexity, is a trap. It is a seductive and dangerous detour that leads most people away from the very path they are trying to find. The truth is that a magnificent life is not built upon a foundation of complexity. It is built upon a foundation of profound and elegant simplicity. This brings us to our 5th law, a principle that is so simple, so unglamorous, and so seemingly obvious that it is almost universally neglected in our modern world. Yet, it is the very heart of all sustainable, long-term success. This is the discipline of fundamentals, mastering the basics. I want you to consider any master of any great craft, a world-class musician, a championship athlete, a master chef, a brilliant architect. What is it that truly separates them from the amateur? It is not that the master possesses a secret chord, a hidden technique, or a magical ingredient that the amateur does not. The difference is that the master has so profoundly and relentlessly practiced the simple, boring, unglamorous fundamentals of their craft that those basics have become an effortless and intuitive part of their very being. The master musician can create a breathtaking symphony because they have spent 10,000 hours practicing the simple, boring scales. The master athlete can perform an incredible feat of athleticism because they have spent a decade mastering the simple, boring fundamentals of their footwork and their posture. Greatness is not a leap. Greatness is the compound interest of 1,000 simple, boring, and fundamentally correct choices, practiced day in and day out with relentless consistency. The great seduction of our age is the seduction of complexity. We believe that a complex problem must require a complex solution. We seek out the new, the novel, the exciting. We buy the next book. We watch the next seminar, always searching for that one advanced secret that will change everything. But this search is often a sophisticated form of procrastination. It allows us to feel like we are making progress, we are learning, we are gathering information without ever having to do the hard, unglamorous, and repetitive work of mastering the basics. The philosophy of a well-lived life is this: you do not need more information. You need to more deeply and consistently apply the simple, powerful, and timeless information you already know to be true. So, what are these fundamentals? While the specifics may vary from life to life, the core principles are universal. There are 5 great fundamental disciplines upon which the architecture of a successful life is built. The first is the fundamental of health. Your physical body is the vessel that carries you through your entire life. Your energy is the raw fuel for your ambition. To neglect the simple, basic fundamentals of your own physical well-being is an act of profound self-sabotage. It is like an architect designing a magnificent skyscraper but paying no attention to the power plant that is meant to light it. What are the basics of health? They are not a secret. They are the simple, timeless truths our grandparents understood. First, the discipline of sleep. In a world that glorifies the hustle, sleep is often seen as a luxury or a weakness. This is a catastrophic error. Sleep is not a passive state of inactivity. It is an active and essential process of recovery, of memory consolidation, of hormonal regulation. A well-rested mind is a clear, creative, and resilient mind. A sleep-deprived mind is a chaotic, reactive, and fragile one. The simple non-negotiable act of getting 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep per night is the foundational health habit upon which all others are built. Second, the discipline of nutrition. Your food is the literal building block of your body and your brain. The fundamental is simple. Eat real food. Minimize the processed, the packaged, and the artificial. You do not need a complex diet plan. You need a simple commitment to providing your body with the high-quality fuel it was designed to run on. Third, the discipline of movement. Your body was not designed to be sedentary. It was designed to move. The fundamental is not to become a world-class athlete. It is to engage in some form of consistent daily movement. A simple, brisk walk is one of the most powerful practices for a healthy body and a clear mind. Sleep, nutrition, movement, these are the basics. They are not exciting, they are not a secret, but their consistent application is the foundation of the energy, the clarity, and the resilience required to achieve anything of worth. The second is the fundamental of mind. Your mind is the architect's office. The quality of its output is determined by the quality of its inputs and its maintenance. The fundamentals of a sharp and powerful mind are equally simple. First, the discipline of learning. You must be a lifelong student. The most fundamental practice of the student is the simple act of reading. To read a good book is to have a direct conversation with a great mind. It is to ingest a lifetime of experience and wisdom in a matter of hours. The simple habit of reading just a few pages of a powerful book every single day is a form of mental nutrition that will compound into profound wisdom over time. Second, the discipline of reflection. Your mind, like a garden, needs to be tended. It is not enough to simply plant new seeds of information. You must also pull the weeds of your own chaotic thoughts and organize the landscape. The fundamental practice here is journaling. The simple act of taking a few minutes each day to write down your thoughts, your plans, your challenges is an act of profound mental clarification. It takes the tangled chaos of your mind and organizes it into coherent, actionable insight. Learning and reflection, input and processing. These are the 2 simple, fundamental practices that create a mind of clarity, of focus, and of power. The third is the fundamental of finances. We have already discussed this at length, but it bears repeating in this context. The fundamentals of a prosperous life are not complex investment strategies. They are the simple, boring, and powerful habits of basic financial hygiene. The first is to spend less than you earn. This is the absolute, non-negotiable foundation of all financial success. The second is to save a portion of everything you earn, paying yourself first. The third is to invest that savings wisely for long-term growth. The fourth is to avoid high-interest debt like a plague. And the fifth is to know, at all times, where your money is going. These 5 fundamentals are all you need to know to build a life of financial security and, eventually, freedom. The world of finance can seem intimidatingly complex, but that complexity is largely noise. Master these 5 basics, practice them with relentless consistency, and your financial success is all but guaranteed. The fourth is the fundamental of relationships. A life of great achievement without a life of deep, meaningful connection is an empty victory. The fundamentals of strong relationships are, once again, timeless and simple. The first is the discipline of presence. When you are with someone, be with them. Put away the phone. Listen not with the intent to reply, but with the intent to understand. The gift of your full, undivided attention is one of the most valuable things you can ever give to another human being. The second is the discipline of appreciation. Do not take the people in your life for granted. Make it a regular practice to express your genuine gratitude and appreciation for them. A simple, sincere word of thanks can be a more powerful glue for a relationship than any grand gesture. The third is the discipline of honest and courageous communication. Do not let resentments fester. Do not avoid the difficult conversations. Speak your truth with kindness and with respect. Presence, appreciation, and honest communication. These are the three simple, fundamental pillars upon which all strong, healthy, and lasting relationships are built. The fifth and final fundamental is the fundamental of action. This is the discipline that breathes life into all the others. It is the practice of identifying and executing on your most important task. At the beginning of each day, you must ask yourself the simple, powerful question. What is the one thing I can do today that will bring me closest to my most important goal? You identify that one thing, and you commit to doing it, preferably first, before the chaos of the day has a chance to intervene. This is the fundamental of progress. A successful life is not the result of doing 4,000 different things. It is the result of doing a few vital, fundamental things 4,000 times. These are the fundamentals: health, mind, finances, relationships, action. There are no secrets here. The secret, if there is one, is that there is no secret. The magic is in the mundane. The extraordinary is born from the relentless and masterful application of the ordinary. Stop searching for the next complex, exciting new thing. The path to the life you desire is not a hidden path. It is a simple path, a clear path, and it is right in front of you. It is the path of mastering the basics. Fall in love with the fundamentals. Commit to the simple daily practice of these powerful disciplines. Do not be discouraged by their simplicity, for it is in this simplicity that their profound and life-altering power is found. Leo, we have now arrived at a profound and clarifying truth in our journey. We have accepted in our fifth discipline that a life of extraordinary success is not built upon a foundation of complexity, but upon the relentless and masterful execution of a few simple, powerful fundamentals. We have committed to the daily practice of mastering the basics of our health, our mind, our finances, our relationships, and our actions. This commitment to the fundamentals, as powerful as it is, immediately presents us with a new and practical challenge. How does one master a fundamental? How does one go from a clumsy beginner to a graceful expert in any chosen craft? How does one build a magnificent cathedral from the simple daily act of laying one brick at a time? The answer lies in understanding the very nature of progress itself. It requires a deep philosophical shift in our relationship with our goals, with our efforts, and with time itself. This is not a technique, it is a way of being. This brings us to our sixth law, the law that governs the very engine of all human achievement. This is the law of process, mastering the next step. I want you to consider the two great journeys that are available to any person who sets out to achieve a worthy goal. The first is the journey of the destination. The second is the journey of the process. The person on the journey of the destination is obsessed with the summit of the mountain. Their gaze is fixed on the distant future prize. Every step they take is measured only by how much closer it brings them to that final outcome. Because their happiness is tied to a future event, their present moment is a constant source of anxiety and frustration. They are perpetually aware of the vast distance that still remains. The journey, for them, is a painful, necessary evil to be endured in order to one day, finally, arrive at a fleeting moment of victory. They are in a frantic, joyless race against time. And because they are so focused on the end, they are often blind to the path directly in front of them. They seek shortcuts. They are tempted by giant, risky leaps, hoping to bypass the long, arduous climb. And more often than not, they stumble, they burn out, and they give up because the summit always seems too far away. Now, let us consider the person on the journey of the process. This person is also aware of the summit. They have a clear vision of their destination, but their primary focus is not on the distant peak. Their focus is on the single, deliberate, and masterful execution of the very next step that is right in front of them. Their joy is not deferred to some distant future. It is found in the simple present moment act of the work itself. They find fulfillment in the rhythm of the climb, in the feeling of their muscles growing stronger with each step, in the art of placing their feet with precision. For them, the journey is not a means to an end. The journey is the reward. The process is the prize. This is the fundamental shift you must make. You must learn to fall in love with the process, not just the promise of the outcome. For it is only through a love of the process that you will ever have the resilience, the patience, and the consistency to reach the destination. The law of process is built upon three core components. The first is the power of the smallest viable step. Our minds are not designed to handle monumental, abstract goals. When you set a goal like build a successful business or write a great novel, you are presenting your mind with a task so large and so overwhelming that its natural response is paralysis. This is the root of procrastination. We do not procrastinate because we are lazy. We procrastinate because we are overwhelmed. The master of the process understands this. They become an expert at breaking down their monumental goals into the smallest, most manageable, and least intimidating units of action. Their goal is not to write a book. Their goal is to write one good sentence now. Their goal is not to get in shape. Their goal is to put on their running shoes and step out the door. The power of the smallest viable step is that it makes it almost impossible to fail. It bypasses the fear and the resistance of the mind, and it initiates the most powerful force in the universe of achievement, momentum. The hardest part of any journey is overcoming the inertia of a stationary object. The smallest viable step is the gentle, consistent push that gets the great flywheel of your ambition turning. The second component is the magic of compounding effort. We live in a world that dramatically overestimates what can be achieved in a single heroic burst of effort and tragically underestimates what can be achieved through small, consistent, daily efforts, compounded over time. Consider the growth of a bamboo tree. After you plant the seed, for the first year, you see nothing. The second year, nothing. The third year, nothing. The fourth year, still nothing. It is during this period that the undisciplined person, obsessed with the destination, would give up in frustration, declaring that their efforts are a failure. But the master of the process, the patient farmer, keeps watering the seed day in and day out, trusting the process. And then, in the fifth year, a miraculous thing happens. The bamboo tree shoots up 90 feet in just 6 weeks. Was this sudden growth the result of the last 6 weeks of effort? Of course not. It was the result of 5 years of quiet, consistent, and often invisible work, where a massive and powerful root system was being built beneath the surface. Your life is the same. The small, daily, fundamental disciplines we have discussed, the reading, the saving, the exercise, the focused work, these are the acts of watering the seed of your potential. For a long time, the results may be invisible, but if you trust the process, if you remain consistent, a day will come when the growth you experience will seem sudden and miraculous to the outside world, but you will know the truth. You will know it was the inevitable result of the compounding effect of your daily disciplined process. The third component is the rhythm of consistency over intensity. The modern world glorifies the intense, heroic effort, the all-nighter, the 14-hour workday, the sprint. And while there may be times when intensity is required, a life built on a foundation of constant, unsustainable intensity is a life destined for burnout. The master of the process understands that the goal is not to be a sprinter, it is to be a marathon runner. The marathon is not won by the person who runs the fastest first mile. It is won by the person who finds a steady, powerful, and sustainable rhythm and holds to that rhythm mile after mile. You must find your own sustainable rhythm of effort. It is far better to work with deep, focused concentration for 4 hours every single day than it is to work for 16 hours one day and then be too exhausted to work for the next 2. It is far better to read 10 pages of a good book every single day for a year than it is to try and read an entire book in one weekend. Consistency, not intensity, is the true engine of all long-term success. You must build a process that you can sustain not just for a week or a month, but for a lifetime. So, how do we cultivate this mindset? How do we learn to fall in love with the path and not just the destination? The first practice is the practice of presence. When you are engaged in your work, you must train your mind to be fully there, not thinking about the email you have to send later, not worrying about the outcome of the project, but fully immersed in the single brushstroke you are applying to the canvas in this very moment. The joy of the process can only be experienced in the present. If your mind is always in the future, your present will always be a source of stress. The second practice is the art of tracking the process, not just the results. We are often obsessed with tracking our outcomes, our weight on the scale, the money in our bank account, the number of sales we have made. While these metrics are important, the master of the process is more obsessed with tracking their adherence to the process itself. They track whether they showed up. They track whether they completed their scheduled block of deep work. They track whether they kept their promise to themselves. They celebrate the successful execution of the process regardless of the immediate outcome. This is how you build an internal sense of victory that is immune to the inevitable ups and downs of the external world. You are rewarding the effort, which is the only thing you can truly control. And finally, you must reframe your setbacks. In a life that is focused only on the destination, any setback is a disaster. It is a sign that you are moving further away from your goal. But in a life focused on the process, there are no failures. There are only deviations from the process that provide you with valuable feedback. A setback is not a sign that you are a failure. It is simply a sign that your process needs to be adjusted. It is an opportunity to learn, to refine your approach, and to become a more skillful practitioner of your own journey. This is the law. It is the great secret of all masters. They have a grand vision, yes, but they have a humble, grounded, and relentless focus on the simple, daily process of taking the next right step. So I ask you to look at the great mountain of your own ambition. Stop allowing its size to overwhelm you. Stop being frustrated by the distance to the summit. Bring your gaze down from the distant peak and place it on the ground directly in front of you. Your only task, your only responsibility, your only concern is to take the next step, and to take it with all the excellence and all the presence you can muster. And when you have done that, you will do the same with the next and the next. This is the path. It is a path of patience. It is a path of consistency. And it is a path of profound and lasting fulfillment. For you will discover that the true masterpiece was not the view from the summit. It was the person you became on the long, deliberate, and beautiful journey of the climb. We have now arrived at a pivotal understanding in our philosophy of a well-lived life. We have committed to the mastery of the fundamentals, and we have fallen in love with the patient, deliberate, and powerful rhythm of the process. We have learned to focus not on the distant summit of the mountain, but on the masterful execution of the next right step. This commitment to process, this dedication to the daily, consistent act of the climb, naturally leads to a profound question. What is the result of such a life? What is the harvest that grows from a field that is tended with such care and consistency? The answer is that a life of masterful process inevitably produces a life of abundant results. And in the economic sphere, the result of a life dedicated to a process of value creation is wealth. This brings us to our seventh law, a principle designed to demystify and simplify one of the most misunderstood subjects in our culture. It is a law that will strip away the complexity and reveal the elegant, simple truth at the heart of all prosperity. This is the simplicity of wealth creation, mastering value. Let us begin by addressing the great myth that surrounds the creation of wealth. We have been conditioned to believe that getting rich is a complex and mysterious process, a secret code reserved for a select lucky few. We see wealth as the result of a brilliant, once-in-a-lifetime idea of being in the right place at the right time, of possessing some rare and magical talent, or of inheriting it. And because we believe it is a complex mystery, most people never even attempt to solve it. They see wealth as a game that is not for them. This belief is the most effective and insidious trap that keeps people in a state of financial struggle. I am here today to tell you that this is a lie. The creation of wealth is not complex. The principles that govern it are, in fact, remarkably and elegantly simple. The process of applying these principles may be challenging. It may require discipline and persistence. But the law itself is not a secret. The singular foundational law upon which all legitimate fortunes are built is this: wealth is the harvest that is reaped from the act of consistently creating and delivering value to other human beings. That is it. That is the entire secret. Your income, your wealth, is a direct and perfect reflection of the value you provide to the marketplace. It is not about your time. It is not about your effort. It is not about your desires. It is about your value. If you wish to have more, you must first choose to be more. To master this simple law, you must first shift your entire mental framework. You must transition from the mindset of a consumer to the mindset of a creator. The consumer's primary question is, what can I get? They look at the world as a marketplace of things to be acquired. Their focus is on their own needs, their own wants, their own desires. The creator, the value master, asks a different, more powerful set of questions. They ask, what can I give? What problem can I solve? What pain can I alleviate? What desire can I fulfill? What service can I render? The creator understands a profound truth. Their own needs are best and most elegantly met by focusing with obsessive intensity on meeting the needs of others. The paradox of wealth is that the most direct path to getting what you want is to spend your time helping other people get what they want. This entire philosophy can be broken down into two core components. The first is value creation. The second is scale. Let us first explore value creation. What is value? Value is anything that another person perceives as useful or desirable. It is solving a problem. The person who can fix a leaky pipe is creating value. The person who can write a piece of software that organizes a chaotic business is creating value. The person who can cook a delicious meal that saves a busy family time is creating value. Value is also fulfilling a need or a desire. The artist who creates a painting that brings beauty into a home is creating value. The musician who composes a song that makes people feel joy is creating value. The storyteller who writes a book that provides a thrilling escape is creating value. Your first task as a student of wealth creation is to become a master at creating some form of value. This requires you to embrace the mindset of the craftsman. You must choose a skill, a craft, a domain, and you must commit to becoming excellent at it. In a world of shallow generalists, the person who has a deep, specific, and valuable skill is the person who holds the power. This is why we have already discussed the discipline of fundamentals in the law of process. The relentless daily practice of your craft is the engine of value creation. You read the books, you take the courses, you find the mentors, you put in the 10,000 hours of deliberate practice. You are not just working, you are forging yourself into a person of undeniable value. But value by itself is not enough to create wealth. You can be the most valuable person in the world, but if that value is only delivered to one or two people, you will not be wealthy. This brings us to the second component, scale. Scale is the ability to deliver your value to a large number of people. This is the concept of leverage. The hired hand trades their time for money, one-to-one. This is a life with no leverage. The creator of wealth looks for ways to decouple their value from their direct hourly labor. They seek to build systems that can deliver their value to many people, even when they are not personally present. How does one achieve scale? The primary way is through the creation of a business. A business is nothing more than a system for delivering a specific value to a specific group of people at a profit. The baker who bakes one loaf of bread for their family has created value. The baker who builds a bakery with a team of employees and a system for distribution who can deliver 10,000 loaves of bread to the city every morning has achieved scale. Their wealth will be a reflection not just of the quality of their bread, but of their ability to deliver it to many. Investing, as we have discussed, is another form of scale. When you invest in a great company, you are leveraging the systems, the teams, and the value creation of thousands of other people. Intellectual property is a third magnificent form of scale. When you write a book, you perform the labor once, but that single act of value creation can be scaled to reach millions of people, generating a profit for you with every single copy that is sold. So the formula is simple. Wealth equals value x scale. If you wish to increase your wealth, you have only two levers to pull. You can either increase the quality and quantity of the value you provide, or you can increase the scale at which you deliver that value. The person who learns to do both is the person whose wealth becomes truly extraordinary. This requires you to become a student of the world, to adopt the mindset of the problem finder. You must train your mind to stop seeing the world in terms of your own problems and to start seeing it as a landscape of opportunities. Every complaint you hear is a potential business idea in disguise. When people complain about a process being too slow, that is a problem of inefficiency. The person who can create a system to make it faster is creating value. When people complain about a product being too difficult to use, that is a problem of complexity. The person who can design a simpler, more elegant solution is creating value. When people complain about feeling lonely or disconnected, that is a problem of community. The person who can build a platform or a service to bring people together is creating value. You must walk through the world with this new set of eyes. See problems not as annoyances, but as invitations. See the needs of others not as a burden, but as an opportunity to serve. The more significant the problem you choose to solve, the greater the value you will create, and the greater your potential for wealth. This is the simplicity of wealth creation. It is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It is a get-valuable-slowly philosophy. It is a commitment to the patient, disciplined, and lifelong work of becoming a person of immense value and then building a system to deliver that value to as many people as possible. It requires all the disciplines we have discussed. It requires the stewardship of your resources to have the capital to begin. It requires the mastery of your time to do the deep work of creation. It requires the process-oriented mindset to stay consistent through the long, often unrewarded period of building. But the law itself is not a mystery. It is simple, it is elegant, and it is available to anyone who is willing to do the work. Stop chasing money. The more you chase it, the more it will elude you. Instead, turn your focus entirely in the other direction. Chase value, chase skill, chase mastery, chase the solutions to the problems that keep other people up at night. Become so valuable, so skillful, and so effective at solving problems that money is drawn to you as a natural consequence. You do not chase the harvest. You diligently, patiently, and masterfully tend to the field, and the harvest, in its own good time, will come. We have now unlocked the elegant and simple secret to all prosperity. We have turned away from the frantic chasing of money and have turned instead toward the noble and challenging work of creating value. We have committed to the path of the creator, the problem solver, the craftsman, understanding that our wealth will be a direct reflection of the value we deliver to the world at scale. This commitment to creating value, to launching the business, to making the sales call, to writing the book, to creating the art immediately brings us face to face with one of the most challenging and emotionally fraught realities of the human experience, the reality of rejection and failure. Not every business idea will succeed. Not every sales call will end in a yes. Not every chapter you write will be brilliant. In the laboratory of life, many of your experiments will fail, and it is this reality that stops most people in their tracks. They experience a few rejections, a few setbacks, and they conclude that their journey is over. They mistake a single data point for the final verdict. This is because they do not understand the profound and powerful law that governs all long-term success in a world of uncertainty. They are trying to win a game of chance with emotion when they should be playing a game of probability with strategy. This brings us to our eighth law, a principle that will transform your relationship with failure and give you the strength to persist through any storm. This is the law of the mathematics of persistence, mastering the law of averages. Let us begin by distinguishing between two mindsets. The first is the mindset of the gambler. The second is the mindset of the professional. The gambler walks up to the table of life, places one large bet, and prays for a lucky outcome. Their entire emotional state is tied to the result of that single event. If they win, they are euphoric. If they lose, they are devastated and declare that luck was against them. The gambler believes in the magical, unpredictable nature of success. The professional understands that success is not a matter of magic, it is a matter of mathematics. The professional is not a gambler, they are a statistician. They understand that the world is governed by probabilities and that the surest way to achieve a desired outcome is not to hope for a single lucky event, but to perform an action enough times that the laws of probability make the desired outcome an inevitability. The law of averages is the simple yet profound principle that states that a particular outcome is guaranteed over a large number of attempts. It is the great secret of all persistent people. It is the mathematical formula for resilience. Consider the simple act of flipping a coin. If you flip it once, the outcome is uncertain. Twice, still uncertain. 3 times, you may even get 3 heads in a row and conclude that the coin is flawed. But the master of this law knows that if you flip that same coin 1,000 times, the result is all but guaranteed to be approximately 500 heads and 500 tails. The randomness of the single event gives way to the predictability of the long-term average. Your life and your efforts are that coin. Any single attempt, any single sales call, any single job application, any single creative endeavor is a coin flip. The outcome is uncertain. But when you commit to making 1,000 attempts, the outcome is no longer a matter of chance. It is a statistical certainty. To master this law, you must understand its 3 core components. The first component is the power of volume. You must be willing to take a massive number of at-bats. A baseball player cannot hit a home run while sitting on the bench. They must step up to the plate again and again and again. The more swings you take, the higher the probability that you will eventually hit the ball. The person who makes 10 sales calls and gives up is the amateur gambler. The person who commits to making 1,000 sales calls, knowing that the law of averages guarantees a certain number of sales within those 1,000 attempts, is the professional. Your first duty, then, is to increase the volume of your meaningful attempts. Stop treating each attempt as a life or death event. See it for what it is, a single data point in a vast statistical experiment. Your job is not to succeed on every attempt. Your job is to complete the number of attempts necessary to achieve the success that the averages predict. The second component is the necessity of no. To master the law of averages, you must fundamentally transform your relationship with rejection. Rejection is not the obstacle on the path to success. Rejection is the path. Every no you receive is not a failure. It is a necessary and unavoidable part of the process. It is the price you must pay to get to the yes. The person who fears the no will never take enough action to hear the yes. You must learn to celebrate the rejections. When you make a sales call and someone says no, you can make a note and say, excellent. I have now completed one of the 99 no's I must collect in order to get my one yes. I am one step closer. This is not a mind trick. It is a profound philosophical shift. You stop seeing rejection as an emotional event and start seeing it as a mathematical requirement. It is the tuition you are paying for the eventual success. When you understand this, the fear of rejection begins to dissolve, because you realize that the rejection is not actually a rejection of you. It is simply a necessary part of the statistical equation you are working to solve. The third component is the compounding of skill. The law of averages is not about mindless, robotic repetition. It is about intelligent persistence. The coin does not learn from each flip, but you do. Your 100th attempt at any task should be far more skillful than your first. With every attempt, with every failure, with every rejection, you are gathering data. You are learning. You are refining your approach. This is the beautiful dynamic nature of this law when applied to human endeavor. As you increase the volume of your attempts, you are also simultaneously increasing your skill. This has the powerful effect of changing the averages themselves. Perhaps when you started, the average required 100 calls to get one sale. But after 100 calls, you have learned so much about your pitch, about the needs of your customers, that now The average only requires 50 calls to get one sale, and then 20, and then 10. The professional does not just play the numbers, they are actively working to improve the numbers in their favor through the relentless pursuit of improvement. This law applies to every field of human life. Consider the world of creativity and innovation. The person who waits for one single brilliant idea will wait forever. The prolific genius understands that great ideas are a numbers game. They generate hundreds of ideas, knowing that the vast majority of them will be mediocre or terrible. But they also know that within those hundreds of ideas, the law of averages guarantees that a few will be good and one or two may even be brilliant. You cannot have the brilliant idea without first having the courage to produce the 99 mediocre ones. Consider the world of relationships. The person who is waiting for the perfect friend, mentor, or partner to appear will often wait a lifetime. The master networker understands that building a powerful circle is a numbers game. They show up. They meet many people. They have many surface-level conversations, knowing that the law of averages dictates that within those many interactions, they will find the few rare and powerful connections that will change their life. This is the mathematics of persistence. It is a philosophy that frees you from the emotional roller coaster of short-term outcomes. It allows you to operate with a calm, steady, and unshakable confidence that is not based on the result of your last attempt, but on the mathematical certainty of your long-term process. It requires all the disciplines we have discussed. It requires the discipline to show up consistently. It requires the stewardship of your time to make the attempts. And it requires the wisdom learned from the University of Failure to improve your average with every try. So I ask you to look at the area of your life where you feel stuck, where you feel you are not getting the results you desire. And I ask you to be honest with yourself. Have you truly played the numbers? Have you made enough attempts for the law of averages to even have a chance to work in your favor? Or have you, like the gambler, placed one or two bets and then walked away from the table, cursing your luck? There is no luck. There is only mathematics. Commit to the process. Increase the volume of your intelligent attempts. Fall in love with the rejection, seeing it as the necessary price of admission. Relentlessly refine your skill with every try. Do this, and your success is no longer a question of if. It is simply a question of when. It is not a matter of hope. It is a matter of mathematics. We have now arrived at a powerful and strategic understanding of the world. We have embraced the eighth law, the mathematics of persistence. We have come to see success not as a matter of luck, but as a matter of probability. We have committed to the path of the professional who understands that with enough attempts, with enough persistence, the law of averages will make their success an inevitability. This understanding gives us the resilience to persist through the endless stream of no's and the inevitable setbacks of an ambitious life. But this law, as powerful as it is, contains within it a hidden trap. The trap is the belief that persistence alone is enough. The trap is the act of mindless, robotic repetition. A person who makes 1,000 sales calls using the exact same flawed script will not see their results improve. A person who tries and fails at a business a dozen times without ever pausing to deeply analyze the reasons for the failure is not learning. They are simply practicing their incompetence. Persistence must be intelligent. Repetition must be coupled with refinement. The process of improving your average, of making your efforts more effective over time, requires a commitment to a deeper, more profound discipline. It requires you to consciously choose your intellectual identity. This brings us to our ninth law, a principle that governs how you interact with the world of ideas and ultimately how you evolve as a human being. This is the law of intellectual sovereignty, being a student, not a follower. In your journey through life, you are presented with two fundamental paths of knowledge acquisition. The first is the path of the follower. The second is the path of the student. The path you choose will determine the altitude of your own potential. The path of the follower is the most common. It is the path of least resistance. The follower is seeking a formula, a dogma, a guru. They are looking for someone to give them a clear, simple, and guaranteed 5-step plan to success. The follower's primary desire is for certainty. They want to be told what to do, how to think, and what to believe. They seek to outsource the difficult and challenging work of independent thought to an external authority. They find a successful person and they attempt to copy their every move, believing that if they mimic the external actions, they will achieve the same internal results. They read a book and they adopt its philosophy as an unchangeable religion. The follower builds their life on a foundation of borrowed convictions and secondhand knowledge. This path can provide a sense of comfort and belonging, but it is a fragile existence. For what happens when the guru is revealed to be flawed? What happens when the formula that worked for someone else in a different time and with a different set of skills does not work for them? The follower's world collapses, for their foundation was not their own. Now, let us contrast this with the path of the student. The student is not seeking a formula. They are seeking to understand the principles behind the formula. The student is not looking for a guru to follow. They are looking for teachers from whom they can learn. The student's primary desire is not for certainty, it is for comprehension. The student reads the same book as the follower, but they do not swallow it whole. They engage with it. They question it. They dissect its arguments. They take the ideas that resonate with their own experience and their own values, and they integrate them into their own unique philosophy. They discard the rest. The student studies the same successful person as the follower, but they do not seek to copy their life. They seek to understand their mindset. They ask, what principles did this person apply? How did they think? How did they make decisions? How can I adapt those principles to my own unique journey? The follower seeks to assemble a life from a prefabricated kit. The student learns the fundamental principles of architecture and then designs and builds their own unique house. The life of the student is a life of intellectual sovereignty. It is the understanding that you and you alone are the ultimate authority in your own life. It is the commitment to creating your own personal philosophy, your own operating system for reality. So, how does one cultivate this mindset of the student, of the intellectual sovereign? It is built upon three pillars. The first pillar is voracious curiosity. You must rekindle the childlike wonder that so many of us have lost. You must walk through the world with a relentless desire to understand. You must constantly be asking the two most powerful questions in the universe, why and how. The follower accepts the world as it is presented. The student is a detective, always looking beneath the surface. Why does this work? How is that built? What is the history of this idea? A life of intellectual sovereignty begins with the refusal to take anything at face value. It is a commitment to a life of perpetual inquiry. The second pillar is healthy skepticism. We must draw a clear distinction between skepticism and cynicism. The cynic is the person who believes that nothing is true. The skeptic is the person who understands that they must do the hard work of discovering what is true for themselves. Cynicism is a lazy and passive state of disbelief. Skepticism is an active and engaged process of verification. The healthy skeptic does not accept an idea simply because it is popular or because it was stated by an authority figure. They listen to the argument, they analyze the evidence, they test the idea against their own reason and their own experience, and only then do they decide whether to accept it. They are the vigilant gatekeeper of their own mind, and they understand that a belief must earn its place in their worldview. The third pillar is the courage of independent thought. This is perhaps the most challenging. To be a true student means you must be willing to arrive at conclusions that are different from those of the people around you. It means you must be willing to stand alone, to be misunderstood, to go against the current of popular opinion. The follower finds their safety in the consensus of the crowd. The student finds their integrity in their alignment with their own reasoned conclusions. This requires immense courage. But it is the only path to true originality and authentic power. The person who thinks for themselves is the person who can create a future that is different from the past. These are the pillars of the mindset. But what is the curriculum of this lifelong student? What and how do they learn? The first practice is to cultivate a diet of a great mind. Just as your physical health is a reflection of the food you eat, your intellectual health is a reflection of the information you consume. The follower consumes a diet of intellectual junk food, the fleeting opinions of social media, the shallow headlines of the news, the endless stream of trivial entertainment. The student is a gourmet. They are a connoisseur of ideas. They feast on the classics. They read the books that have stood the test of time. They study history, philosophy, science, and art. They understand that it is better to read one great book 10 times than it is to read 10 mediocre books once. They are building their mind with the highest quality materials available. The second practice is the power of synthesis. The highest form of learning is not the mere collection of information, it is the act of synthesis. Synthesis is the ability to take disparate, seemingly unrelated ideas from different fields and to connect them, to weave them together into a new, unique, and powerful tapestry. This is how you create your own personal philosophy. You take an idea from a Stoic philosopher, you connect it with a strategy from a modern entrepreneur, you weave in a lesson from a historical biography, and you create a new model for living that is uniquely your own. The follower is a collector of other people's dots. The student is a connector of dots. This act of synthesis is the very essence of creative, independent thought. And finally, the student understands the ultimate truth of knowledge. Application is the final step of learning. Knowledge that remains purely theoretical in the mind is not wisdom, it is trivia. A book that is read but whose lessons are not applied is a wasted afternoon. The true student is always testing what they have learned in the laboratory of their own life. They take the idea, they create an experiment, and they see what happens. They are not just a scholar, they are a scientist. It is in this crucible of real-world application that information is transmuted into true, embodied understanding. This is the path of the student. It is a path that is more challenging, more demanding, and infinitely more rewarding than the comfortable path of the follower. It is a commitment to a life of conscious intellectual evolution. It requires all the disciplines we have discussed. It requires the stewardship of your time to make space for learning. It requires the discipline to read when you would rather be entertained. And it requires the courage to apply what you have learned, knowing that you will often fail along the way. But this is the path of power. This is the path of freedom. When you stop outsourcing your thinking, when you take full and complete ownership of your own education, you become the architect of your own worldview. You are no longer a puppet moved by the strings of cultural conditioning and popular opinion. You are the master of your own mind. And the person who is the master of their own mind is the person who can become the master of their own destiny. We have now arrived at a powerful and strategic understanding of the world. We have embraced the eighth law, the mathematics of persistence. We have come to see success not as a matter of luck, but as a matter of probability. We have committed to the path of the professional who understands that with enough attempts, with enough persistence, the law of averages will make their success an inevitability. This understanding gives us the resilience to persist through the endless stream of no's and the inevitable setbacks of an ambitious life. But this law, as powerful as it is, contains within it a hidden trap. The trap is the belief that persistence alone is enough. The trap is the act of mindless, robotic repetition. A person who makes 1,000 sales calls using the exact same flawed script will not see their results improve. A person who tries and fails at a business a dozen times without ever pausing to deeply analyze the reasons for the failure is not learning. They are simply practicing their incompetence. Persistence must be intelligent. Repetition must be coupled with refinement. The process of improving your average, of making your efforts more effective over time, requires a commitment to a deeper, more profound discipline. It requires you to consciously choose your intellectual identity. This brings us to our ninth law, a principle that governs how you interact with the world of ideas and ultimately how you evolve as a human being. This is the law of intellectual sovereignty, being a student, not a follower. In your journey through life, you are presented with two fundamental paths of knowledge acquisition. The first is the path of the follower. The second is the path of the student. The path you choose will determine the altitude of your own potential. The path of the follower is the most common. It is the path of least resistance. The follower is seeking a formula, a dogma, a guru. They are looking for someone to give them a clear, simple, and guaranteed 5-step plan to success. The follower's primary desire is for certainty. They want to be told what to do, how to think, and what to believe. They seek to outsource the difficult and challenging work of independent thought to an external authority. They find a successful person and they attempt to copy their every move, believing that if they mimic the external actions, they will achieve the same internal results. They read a book and they adopt its philosophy as an unchangeable religion. The follower builds their life on a foundation of borrowed convictions and secondhand knowledge. This path can provide a sense of comfort and belonging, but it is a fragile existence. For what happens when the guru is revealed to be flawed? What happens when the formula that worked for someone else in a different time and with a different set of skills does not work for them? The follower's world collapses, for their foundation was not their own. Now, let us contrast this with the path of the student. The student is not seeking a formula. They are seeking to understand the principles behind the formula. The student is not looking for a guru to follow. They are looking for teachers from whom they can learn. The student's primary desire is not for certainty, it is for comprehension. The student reads the same book as the follower, but they do not swallow it whole. They engage with it, they question it, they dissect its arguments. They take the ideas that resonate with their own experience and their own values, and they integrate them into their own unique philosophy. They discard the rest. The student studies the same successful person as the follower, but they do not seek to copy their life. They seek to understand their mindset. They ask, what principles did this person apply? How did they think? How did they make decisions? How can I adapt those principles to my own unique journey? The follower seeks to assemble a life from a prefabricated kit. The student learns the fundamental principles of architecture and then designs and builds their own unique house. The life of the student is a life of intellectual sovereignty. It is the understanding that you and you alone are the ultimate authority in your own life. It is the commitment to creating your own personal philosophy, your own operating system for reality. So, how does one cultivate this mindset of the student, of the intellectual sovereign? It is built upon three pillars. The first pillar is voracious curiosity. You must rekindle the childlike wonder that so many of us have lost. You must walk through the world with a relentless desire to understand. You must constantly be asking the two most powerful questions in the universe: why and how. The follower accepts the world as it is presented. The student is a detective, always looking beneath the surface. Why does this work? How is that built? What is the history of this idea? A life of intellectual sovereignty begins with the refusal to take anything at face value. It is a commitment to a life of perpetual inquiry. The second pillar is healthy skepticism. We must draw a clear distinction between skepticism and cynicism. The cynic is the person who believes that nothing is true. The skeptic is the person who understands that they must do the hard work of discovering what is true for themselves. Cynicism is a lazy and passive state of disbelief. Skepticism is an active and engaged process of verification. The healthy skeptic does not accept an idea simply because it is popular or because it was stated by an authority figure. They listen to the argument, they analyze the evidence, they test the idea against their own reason and their own experience, and only then do they decide whether to accept it. They are the vigilant gatekeeper of their own mind, and they understand that a belief must earn its place in their worldview. The third pillar is the courage of independent thought. This is perhaps the most challenging. To be a true student means you must be willing to arrive at conclusions that are different from those of the people around you. It means you must be willing to stand alone, to be misunderstood, to go against the current of popular opinion. The follower finds their safety in the consensus of the crowd. The student finds their integrity in their alignment with their own reasoned conclusions. This requires immense courage, but it is the only path to true originality and authentic power. The person who thinks for themselves is the person who can create a future that is different from the past. These are the pillars of the mindset. But what is the curriculum of this lifelong student? What and how do they learn? The first practice is to cultivate a diet of a great mind. Just as your physical health is a reflection of the food you eat, your intellectual health is a reflection of the information you consume. The follower consumes a diet of intellectual junk food, the fleeting opinions of social media, the shallow headlines of the news, the endless stream of trivial entertainment. The student is a gourmet. They are a connoisseur of ideas. They feast on the classics. They read the books that have stood the test of time. They study history, philosophy, science, and art. They understand that it is better to read one great book 10 times than it is to read 10 mediocre books once. They are building their mind with the highest quality materials available. The second practice is the power of synthesis. The highest form of learning is not the mere collection of information, it is the act of synthesis. Synthesis is the ability to take disparate, seemingly unrelated ideas from different fields and to connect them, to weave them together into a new, unique, and powerful tapestry. This is how you create your own personal philosophy. You take an idea from a Stoic philosopher, you connect it with a strategy from a modern entrepreneur, you weave in a lesson from a historical biography, and you create a new model for living that is uniquely your own. The follower is a collector of other people's dots. The student is a connector of dots. This act of synthesis is the very essence of creative, independent thought. And finally, the student understands the ultimate truth of knowledge. Application is the final step of learning. Knowledge that remains purely theoretical in the mind is not wisdom, it is trivia. A book that is read but whose lessons are not applied is a wasted afternoon. The true student is always testing what they have learned in the laboratory of their own life. They take the idea, they create an experiment, and they see what happens. They are not just a scholar, they are a scientist. It is in this crucible of real-world application that information is transmuted into true, embodied understanding. This is the path of the student. It is a path that is more challenging, more demanding, and infinitely more rewarding than the comfortable path of the follower. It is a commitment to a life of conscious, intellectual evolution. It requires all the disciplines we have discussed. It requires the stewardship of your time to make space for learning. It requires the discipline to read when you would rather be entertained. And it requires the courage to apply what you have learned, knowing that you will often fail along the way. But this is the path of power. This is the path of freedom. When you stop outsourcing your thinking, when you take full and complete ownership of your own education, you become the architect of your own worldview. You are no longer a puppet, moved by the strings of cultural conditioning and popular opinion. You are the master of your own mind. And the person who is the master of their own mind is the person who can become the master of their own destiny. And so, we have come to the end of our discussion. The 10 laws of a well-lived life have been laid before you. The law of stewardship, the art of the deliberate day, the philosophy of the harvest, the pursuit of sovereignty, the discipline of fundamentals, the law of process, the simplicity of wealth creation, the mathematics of persistence, intellectual sovereignty, and the abdication of the excuse. These are not just ideas, they are choices. They are a daily practice. They are the architectural principles for a life of success, of fulfillment, and of meaning. The power to change your life has been within you all along. The question is not whether you are capable. The only question is whether you will choose to do the work. The choice, as always, is yours. Thank you.